But everybody who listens to their voice back, their voice is higher than they thought because when you talk, you hear some of like your skull and like deep vibrations happening in your own head, basically. That is not communicated to the outside.
So Dan, you must sound like Barry White in your own head because your voice is very deep.
I wonder what Barry White sounds like to himself.
Just an endlessly plucked bass note off of like an electric bass guitar.
It is annoying if I'm in a really loud place. I can't have a conversation with anyone. Like the number of times I just give up and like go in a corner because I cannot talk to anyone. They can't hear me no matter how loudly I speak, and I'm assuming it's because of my deep voice.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Not Your Father's Movies. I'm Vito.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Jesse. We're the Dad Fathers coming at you, repeating and coming at you with some energy.
Repeating and coming at you with some energy?
Repeating and coming at you with some energy.
Repeating and coming at you with some energy?
Yeah.
There it is. There's a resolution.
Yeah, we got to stop that.
The reason we're doing this, everyone, is that we are cracking open a new series today. It's an exciting day. It's the first time we've done a new series in the new year that wasn't just tied to one franchise, which is really cool. Really happy to do it. We're doing time loop romances, which is crazy that we have a whole series with enough movies for that series to exist.
It is pretty amazing.
Yeah. And we're going to repeat and repeat and repeat those things and live and die until the end of Groundhog Day. So our first episode,
even live, die, and repeat
until the edge of tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we're here today with the first episode. It's Groundhog Day from 1993, the year of my birth. So this is obviously the best one that we're going to do. I mean, it heralded my coming into the world. You guys were already alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
You were just waiting for me to be here.
That's true.
You were like,
it made Groundhog Day for you. That's what it is.
Oh, thank you.
And you were like the repeat of us because you were the last one. Maybe you're the best one because you're the evolved. You know what? I'm going to stop.
According to Groundhog Day logic, I would be the best one. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, or maybe you're just the depressed suicidal one. Who knows what stage this landed on?
Am I jumping in front of semi-trucks? Am I dropping toasters in bathtubs? We don't know yet. But this is obviously the classic comedy from 1993 starring Bill Murray, written and directed by Harold Ramis. Before we get into that, let's talk about a segment that we've been doing for a while. I think I really like it. I think that we should just keep doing it if y'all are down. It's the what have we been watching or our family's been watching. We need to come up with a catchier title, I think. And any thoughts on what we could call this?
What's up? What's up? And you can be like, oh, this is what's up.
All right. You know what? Yeah, I'll tell you what's up. I watched The Power of the Dog, and I really didn't like it.
Oh.
In fact, the more that I think about it, the more I'm like, wow, that was just like really depressing and sad. And like, I didn't like anybody. I didn't care much about what happens after like half the movie, for the second half of the movie. Yeah, maybe that's The Power of the Dog hot take, but it's also up for Best Picture this year, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a front runner.
It's up for a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I think
it actually has the most
nominations.
Yeah, you're right, Dan. 12, I believe.
Yeah, I would understand for actor and cinematography, maybe best score. The score is really good. But yeah, man, if I'm going to watch a movie about a bunch of people that I don't like, I think they should be doing something interesting, or I should find a lot in their character to analyze, and I didn't find either of those things. I just found people I'm just being really sad and not being able to ever get out of it. And it seemed like that's what the movie was about. Things suck. It's like, all right.
Well, no, they do get out. They do get out of it. I don't want to spoil The Power of the Dog, but they definitely get out of it.
In a way.
I think the idea at the end of it is that things have gotten better for several of the characters, maybe?
Yeah, 3 of 4.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil the other one, but yeah, 3 of 4 characters are way better off at the end.
I think two are. Anyway.
That's interesting. I felt like the exact opposite from you. I mean, I guess not the exact opposite, but when I watched it, like when I first watched it, I was like, this is a trash movie. This is garbage. And then I thought about it a little bit, and I didn't think that ever. It's a very well made movie, but but I was frustrated. I was really frustrated. I wrestled with this movie a good bit. I like it a good deal more now than I did initially.
And I guess to clarify what I meant, like I think it sucks, but it's more like maybe only one character has agency and the rest are just like wallowing and they don't know how to fix anything. Like there are bad relationships and they're just bad. There's nothing to be done about it.
And that rang true for me watching it, especially given that, we have Phil, who's obviously going through a crisis himself, but he's using a misanthropy to sort of deal with that crisis, and he's lashing out at everyone in his life and making them miserable because of a deep core kind of trauma in his character that he can't ever get over. And because of how kind of abusive and violent he is, not like physical violence, but it's emotional abuse that he's and mental abuse he's leveling upon the people in his life, calling his brother fatso all the time and driving Kirsten Dunst to drink, calling his nephew, homophobic slurs. It kind of makes sense to me that a lot of the characters wouldn't know what to do, because Phil is not a bad guy. Like, he's not evil. He's certainly not pleasant, nor is he likable. But that's a hard case when you have an abuser in a tight family relationship like that. I mean, he lives with them. It's hard to cut that guy out. It's hard to do anything, especially given the history that Jesse Plemons' character has with him. It's a really complicated situation, and feels very true to life for me through things that I've noticed or things that I've experienced in my own life. So it makes sense to me that no one would really know what to do, and it can seem like wallowing. But I think it's more than that. I think it's the flailing of innocent people who don't know how to deal with an abuser because of the widespread ramifications that would do to their lives as a whole. And I thought that it was very sensitive and very well observed, even if I agree it is definitely slow, far too slow than it needs to be.
Well, it's funny that you just brought all that up. Like, people are just kind of like flailing, because I think I'm personally probably going to talk about that later in this episode about this movie. But it's funny that I could talk about that. You're right. This is kind of about something totally different than Groundhog Day. This sort of like dealing with this sort of person who's been through this sort of emotional trauma. But it's also, when I'm watching a movie about that, if I'm watching, especially if it's supposed to be a drama, which this is supposed to be a drama, it feels like, and there's not really enough drama here. Don't want to just see flailing and not knowing what to do. I would like to focus on characters who are doing something. I think I'll pass the torch to somebody else. I do appreciate what you're saying about it, but I don't think my opinion about the power of the dog is really going to change.
That's fair. We're talking about it, so I just wanted to weigh in, because it's not a movie that we maybe in our Oscar episode we might discuss it a little bit more, but it's not a movie that's going to come up a lot.
You don't think this is a tried and true dad movie?
No, no, I don't. I think that
the dog is a dad movie.
The power of the dad does not lie with this one. I would love to talk more about Power of the Dog maybe later in the year when we do the Oscar episode, because it is a big front runner, and I think we do have a lot of thoughts to say about it. I'm not here being like, Power of the Dog, because I didn't particularly like the movie. I just think that it was very well made, and I would like to discuss the ideas at the heart of it. But in no way did I finish the movie and be like, yes, that resonated deeply. It was more just like, oh, that was a very well-made, really unpleasant time.
Okay, that's this. It's definitely, I kind of like that it was made and that it is a really like the biggest Oscar frontrunner, because I want more movies like this. Not maybe this story or something, but it's a serious movie. This is a work of art that's serious and takes itself seriously. I like that.
I agree. I would like more serious movies that don't feel self-serious, but also don't feel the need to wink at the camera.
Yeah.
Like, bring back an R-rated drama.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
That. All about those.
I did get a few moments of that. There were a lot of scenes where, who's the main character? Phil? I guess he's technically the main character, where he was looking at the boy and like when he's like pounding the stake into the ground, or he's always like putting something into a hole. I was just like, this is really uncomfortable. And it felt like it almost felt like that. what's that movie? It's the Dewey Cox story. Let's
Walk Hard.
do it. Yeah. When they're like doing a bunch of like innuendos like right in front of each other. That's what there were many scenes in this movie that I'm like, oh man, that's got to be really intentional. I thought it was a little too ham-fisted and yeah, but the cinematography is still beautiful. Anyway,
it's tough with like slow movies too. I feel like making a movie that slow, you're always limiting your audience to a certain number of people that enjoy slow movies. And even myself, there's very rare times that I'm in the mood for a slow movie. So it's tough. Like the mood that even I'm in would determine how I, receive a movie like The Power of the Dog. For that reason, I tend to like, it's not a movie that I would ever recommend, I don't think, because it's so like dependent on your dispositions and what you've been through in your life. And that's kind of my take on it. But
I think
that's wise.
I think that's a pretty good take. It really does depend on like what you've seen and done yourself, and the kind of people because
As someone though that is from Montana and Wyoming, New Zealand sure as shit does not look like Montana. All right, not for 1 second was I like, yes, the American West.
That was shot in New Zealand.
Yeah, entirely.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, you can just tell like there's a little hobbits just walking over these mountain ranges. All right, like you look in the background, you see a tall wizard with a staff. Anyway, enough Power of the Dog. Let's pause that for a little bit. Mike, what have you been watching?
Well, this weekend we
Oh wait, I'm sorry, Mike. I don't want to interrupt you, but I have to say, what's up?
Oh, that's right. What's up with me is that this weekend we had a family movie night. And we watched, because of your recommendations, Kung Fu Panda.
Yay!
It was great.
Oh, nice.
It was so much fun. They loved it. They were big fans of the whole thing.
It's fun, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. I was a big fan of the whole thing. I'd never seen it before, and it was a blast. We had a great time.
The action scenes are incredible.
Oh, they really are.
Like really good.
Yeah. Yeah. I was very surprised by that. How I don't know how much like actual fun it was to watch. And then afterwards we were practicing Kung Fu in the backyard. It was great. Kids are jumping around. They're like, I'm going to be the Dragon Warrior. Dad's the Dragon Warrior. We're all the Dragon Warriors.
And you shut that down. You said, no, I'm the Dragon Warrior.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, Dad's the Dragon Warrior. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I really enjoyed that movie when I've seen it, but I still haven't showed it to my kids yet.
That's
a great suggestion, though.
That's been.
Yeah.
I feel like your son will definitely want to be a good guy at the end. Well, actually,
No,
you know
I don't
what?
know.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, because Mr. Snow Leopard there, he is quite a cool
Really
dude.
Cool.
Yeah.
He's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The scene where he breaks out of prison was almost too much for my older daughter.
Yeah.
Because she's the one who's just like jumpy and bounces around a lot, and she can get kind of like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of drama. Maybe I'm going to leave. But she stayed. She stayed for it. I was very proud of her. It was very brave. And my younger daughter was like, wow, this is terrifying, but it's so cool. This is cool, right, Dad? Like, am I right that this is cool, or should I be afraid?
He's using crossbow bolts as a
afraid.
staircase, you know?
Was just very sure to be very vocal. I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. Look, he's using crossbow bolts as a staircase. And they're like, okay, this seems like terror, but I guess it's fun.
Excitement is what you're feeling.
later on, or a couple days ago, my older daughter was like, there's sometimes where things are scary, but it's actually kind of fun. It's like, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Wow.
Very good. So
there's a lot of adults that don't know that.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So we're going to watch The Ring next.
Yes. The Ring is perfect.
Yeah.
Dan, have you shown this to your kids?
I have not. I have actually not seen Kung Fu Panda since it was in theaters, I think. So I was probably a teenager when it came out. But yeah, it's definitely, now that both of you guys have had success with your families, I'll definitely put it on the list.
Yeah.
I know my oldest son would love it. Like he loves everything animated with action. So I'm sure he'll be a huge fan.
This is the definition of animated action, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And there aren't a whole lot of like action-oriented cartoons for kids. Like Raya and the Last Dragon came out a while ago. And I hated it.
Yeah, I hated it too, Jesse.
Yeah. And then there's like a
wait.
couple others.
Jesse,
Like-
no, don't forget the classic, The Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Coooold.
Of course, that owl movie from Zack Snyder.
That is amazing.
It is amazing.
I keep on hearing it's amazing, but Zack Snyder, I don't care about Zack Snyder anymore.
It's
How do
rad.
I get this guy out of my life?
It's rad as hell. You're missing out, man.
I'll watch it next year.
Ugh.
Next year because I don't know. I've watched too many Zack Snyder movies for
You're
my
probably gonna
taste.
have to watch it when Dan has a birthday. Just saying. And I'm here for you, Dan.
I have like a dirty little secret, guys. I am excited for his not Star Wars movie. Like I'm actively excited.
What is
for
it called?
I don't
like
know
Rebels,
why.
or what is it
Yeah,
called?
the Rebel Moon.
Rebel Moon. That's
Like,
right.
I really want to see a movie called Rebel Moon. That
It's
sounds
true.
great. That sounds really good to me.
I mean, you just finished playing The Outer Worlds.
Yeah.
So you are in a Rebel Moon headspace.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I feel like a little bit like that's a dirty, dark secret for
I'll
me.
keep Zach my dirty little secret.
There we go. Yeah. Don't tell anyone. Dan, what's up?
Oh man, what's up? Let's see. My wife and I recently watched a really good movie. It was a recommendation from a bunch of teacher friends of mine, and it's about, well, it's called Another Round.
Oh yeah.
It's about a bunch of teachers. It's a German film, so it's all in German, but there's subtitles, and it's got Matt Mikkelsen,
Yeah.
who's amazing in it, and it's about a bunch of teachers who essentially they do a like social experiment where they retain like a low level of intoxication for a prolonged period of time, and they try to see if
They're microdosing alcohol.
essentially, yeah, like they're very scientific about it, and they log all of their findings, and they're trying to figure out if it like has a good effect or a bad effect to their social and professional lives. It's really good though, really really good. So I think we're watching that tomorrow night
Oh, really?
for the movie
Okay.
night. Yeah,
That's cool because I've been excited to see this movie ever since. I think it was Mike that brought it up in the top 5 episode over a year ago. Still haven't seen it since then.
Same.
But yeah, I keep meaning to see it. I do like this guy. This director is
Thomas
well known.
Vinterberg.
Yeah, Vinterberg. I think I've seen a cut. Didn't he? Did he do The Hunt?
He did The Hunt. Yeah.
Which is another one about a teacher.
okay.
Much
I-
different scenario.
Much different scenario. Yeah, I watched that before becoming a teacher, and I was terrified ever since.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's about a kindergarten teacher who like his student comes out and accuses him of molesting her, and then the small town just like turns on him instantly. And I think at the outset it's like not true,
Sure.
but like she just says it. I guess this guy really likes teachers.
Yeah,
It's funny that your teacher friends recommended Another Round.
yeah. No, they love it. I don't remember which one in particular mentioned it, but right when he mentioned it, all of them were like, "Yes, that is a great movie." So,
Have
you're a
they
fan
also
of it, Mike?
been trying the alcohol experiment, where they're
Um,
maintaining a low level of
Independently
intoxication?
of each other.
I guess
Yeah.
we'll know in a few years if they can break dance. But
Yeah, man, it was very interesting. It's a beautiful movie in a lot of ways, and it's a really weird movie because I feel like any American movie that would take up this premise would have a very clearly defined sort of ending where like this is a bad idea
right,
and like alcohol is destructive, and
Hmm.
this movie, I don't know if it comes down with an opinion
Don't
at
spoil
the
it.
end. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything. That might even be a spoiler itself, but it's about so much more than that. There's also this sort of background story that I found really interesting, sort of about the movie. I don't know if you know this, Dan, but Thomas Vinterberg tragically lost his daughter sort of right before they started filming this movie.
She was going to be in it.
She was going to be in it to a drunk driving incident.
Yeah.
wow,
And this movie is dedicated to her.
And his speech at the Academy Awards when he got the Best International Film, he had a really beautiful speech about her and talked about how it was a comedy, and it was really moving, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that adds to how moving this movie is. In I don't know. I feel like sort of all the things that you say about it, everything I heard about it made me think like, oh, this is going to be a dark movie. And it's really
Yeah.
not, right? Like it's very
Right.
much not a dark movie.
It's a very, what's the word? It's a very split movie. Like you feel like there are moments when you should be laughing and there are moments when you should be crying, and you're not sure at what scenes you're supposed to do that. It's
Yeah.
very, yeah. No, the only other tidbit I did hear is that the singer of the final song, I think it's called "It's Our Life" or something like that, or "It's My Life."
Okay.
The singer of that final song where he dances, the singer was a best friend of his daughter's, of the director's daughter, and that he remembers driving both of them home from parties where both of them were, completely drunk, and that was also going through his head was being a father and driving your teenage kids home from parties like that. So
Wow.
That's another round. I really need to revisit. I need to go to this
Yeah.
one and see it.
But the fact that it's
you
been
and Jesse
years,
are watching it.
but the fact that it's been a year since I recommended it to both of you,
Yeah.
and you haven't watched it, is totally on par with all of my recommendations.
It's on par with
that's okay. That's okay.
almost all of mine to all of you guys as well. All right, we are we respect each other, but really ignore each other.
I watched Limbo, Mike.
You did.
I
That
watched
was-
Limbo,
That
Mike.
was like the sweetest thing you guys have ever done for me.
You can sniff butts. Right?
And I invited, I think I had Letney over to watch Limbo with me, and I didn't like Limbo that much. I do appreciate quite a bit of it, though. It's still stuck with me. But Letney really liked it.
Yeah.
So I could say I got Letney to like it for you. On behalf of you,
Thank you.
Letney likes it now.
I appreciate it.
Because of you, someone else likes it. That's not
Not me likes that movie. That's great.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Hey, Vito.
Yeah.
What's up? This is horrible.
I'm always going to laugh at it. It's going to be a thing from now on.
As long as we just keep it up, we can't do the "was up." That's really annoying and super dated, and I hate it.
Oh yeah.
But if we keep it like high, I can deal with that.
Okay.
What's up?
What's up?
I'm down with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, tonight before this podcast, so I previously shared that me and my family really enjoyed watching Paddington, and we just watched Paddington 2.
Ooh.
And I am one of those obnoxious people who says Paddington 2, 5 stars. This movie's incredible. This movie's incredible. It's so wonderful. I loved it to pieces. I think it's beautiful. It's funny. It's engaging. I would, like, my wife made a point halfway through. She's like, I would just watch this. Like, the kid does not have to be here. I would watch this. And I 1,000% agree. I would just watch it. Yeah. It's delightful. It's deep. It's emotional, but it's not sappy. It's not melodramatic in any way. It's it touches every point exactly as it should be touched and moves on exactly when it should. It never overstays its welcome. I think it's a beautiful movie. I loved it a lot. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to like this more than the first Paddington, because I like that one so much. But no, it's fantastic. Hugh Grant is evil. He's evil. He's a really bad dude. And he's a bad dude. He's an actor who has a kind of a dissociative disorder where he has a bunch of these mannequins that have all of his favorite costumes on around him. And he's got this whole plot to steal this thing that Paddington really wants. I don't want to spoil it. But he in a Smeagol kind of way, like a Gollum way, he is putting on different voices and the camera focuses on the different mannequins as he uses different accents for everybody while he talks to himself. But it's funny and it's a kid's movie and it's never like sad and he's never scary. Like the tone is perfect. The tone is a wall-to-wall perfect. It's family friendly for literally any age. There's numerous times where my daughter, because some of the humor is very cringy, I looked at my daughter and she's actively cringing, like trying to hide. There's moments where it's really sweet and I look over and she's smiling at how nice it is. And other moments where something bad will happen to Paddington and I just see like this frown on her face. It was just so easy for her to follow, but it was also complex enough for me to be really interested. So Paddington 2, man, it's amazing. Fantastic.
All right.
I can't think of a single thing wrong with it. I love it very much.
Yeah, I think I've written it off because it's called Paddington 2.
Yep.
which is up there for me with like the Country Bears too. Two Country, Two Bears. I'm not even sure if that's a movie, but
I think we just
Yeah,
came
I'm-
up with that one, but it's a great title.
I remember watching the trailers to I think it was the first Paddington here in the States, and it just looked like, yeah, your next cringy kids movie, like this bear that gets up, into all these hijinks, and it just looked so dumb. I didn't watch it
Yeah.
for I think a decade because of those trailers, but then I heard it it was some sort of like top movies list, and they were raving about Paddington. I'm like, what in the world? This is a dumb kids movie. Like, this shouldn't be on here. And my wife and I checked both of them out, and yeah, we were both floored by them. Like, there's so much to them, and it's so clever, and it's got the British thing going for it, where it's the humor is right on point. So yeah,
it's wry, it's dry, it's never crude, but it's always very clever. Like it's a PG rated Edgar Wright, but not nearly so manic. But it's I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. I think well said, Dan. Yeah, you guys got to watch them. They're great.
Yeah. Did you show it to your kids too?
we have not. We watched them before we had kids.
Oh, okay.
So
In the
I don't
before
know why-
times.
Yeah, before.
See, you don't need them.
No.
You don't need kids to enjoy them.
It's true.
That's really cool. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Like this would probably be a better date night movie for me and my wife rather than Prisoners or Last Night in Soho or any of the other movies that we watched on date nights.
It would be a nice change, but also no, I watched these blind with both of them with my child who's 4, and I was completely okay with everything on screen.
Cool.
There's one part where Hugh Grant dresses up as a nun, which I thought would be offensive, but was actually really funny.
Fantastic.
Anyway, that's what's up. What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's better?
That's what's up.
There we go.
Just have Mike do them all.
That's what I wanted.
Great.
Yeah.
And now we're going to get back into our main feature here, Groundhog Day. Directed by Harold Ramis. You might know this man from being the writer of Animal House, Meatballs, Caddyshack, Stripes, Ghostbusters, Analyze This and That, and then director of many of those projects as well. He's a comedy legend who passed away in 2014. Very sadly missed. Do you guys have a favorite Harold Ramis, or is this it?
This is it.
This is it.
Yeah.
Same.
I got to say, Ghostbusters, really, I didn't like it as much as when I was a kid, but recently I did watch it. I finally got why it was so funny. Like as a kid, I was waiting for like the Jim Carrey antics of like the joke a minute, but I finally got it, and I laughed until I cried. He's got a very specific sense of humor, though, and I like that it's not only so specific that you can clearly tell what's a Harold Ramis project, but you can also clearly see how in pop culture that kind of humor has come through, But it stars Bill Murray. We know him from previous episode Fantastic Mr. Fox. So I don't want to shout out too many of his things, but let's shout out some different ones. Tootsie, Little Shop of Horrors. What About Bob? Space Jam, Rushmore, Lost in Translation, Life Aquatic, Fantastic Mr. Fox, and The French Dispatch.
That's right. Yes, he
Mike's
is.
favorite movie from last year.
So good.
Also,
Not a
Ghostbusters.
single award nominee. Also Ghostbusters.
Also
yeah.
Ghostbusters, yes.
Yeah.
And then also starring Andy McDowell, who's the mother to Margaret Qualley from our Once Upon a Time in Hollywood episode, but herself is also the star of Sex, Lies, and Videotape, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, Ready or Not, and then also the Netflix show that came out just this past year, which also stars her daughter, Maid, which I've been hearing a lot of really good things about, but have not found the time to check out. Any
She's
thoughts,
in
Dan?
Ready or Not?
Yeah, she's the aunt.
Okay.
Yeah, she's
Aunt.
the one that's like, you should get out of here while you still can.
Okay.
I think she was around more in the 90s. Like she has one of those faces that I remember watching quite a bit besides just Groundhog Day, or not quite a bit, but like seeing her every now and then. And now I feel like I don't see her anymore, but I haven't seen The Maid, so I guess that'd be why.
Yeah. Her credits recently have been a lot of TV shows, but in the 90s, she was kind of a rising star. Sex, Lies, and Videotape is Steven Soderbergh's big breakout movie, the one like the Palme d'Or at Cannes. And then 4 Weddings and a Funeral, she worked with, Hugh Grant. It was a really big romantic comedy that came out then that also launched. I think that's the same guy that did, like, what's that one that everyone hates? Love Actually. I think it's that guy.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But
Some people love it.
Mike's
There's someone
thoughts.
else in this movie. who, oh my gosh, what do I
Steve, are you talking about Stephen Tobolowsky?
No, I'm not talking about Stephen Tobolowsky. I am talking about someone who apparently no one else noticed. He's a big star. He's been on on our podcast before. Michael Shannon. Michael Shannon is in this movie.
Is Michael Shannon in this movie?
Michael Shannon is in this movie.
Where is Michael Shannon? Is he like a newspaper guy?
No, he is the guy who, there's obviously a lot of other people, but he is the guy who gets married to the girl. That's Michael Shannon. He's got
Academy
like one
Award
line.
nominated actor Michael Shannon.
Yeah, and like great, intense actor, great bad guy Michael Shannon.
Yes.
Yeah, he is in this movie. It's like it's his second movie ever.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Yes. Good job.
Remind Mike, could you please remind the audience who Michael Shannon is?
So there's this couple that you get introduced to in.
Are you asking? I don't think.
I mean,
oh yeah,
outside of
Michael
here.
Shannon,
the bad guy in Shape of Water.
Yeah, he's the bad guy in Shape of Water. Everyone's favorite movie, and
yeah.
He's the sheriff that has the stomach cancer. Nocturnal Animals.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, keep going.
Well, he's in that, and then he's in Cold in July. He's in what's that one? The one where he's the guy who has the post-apocalyptic visions, and he builds like the thing in the back. Take Shelter.
Yeah.
Shotgun Diaries, right? He's also in the other one from Mike Nichols about his kid who has the psychic powers. Midnight Special.
Yeah.
Shit.
You still haven't gotten it.
Oh, Zod from Man of Steel.
You still haven't gotten the movie that he's in that we've talked about on this podcast.
Oh, I wasn't thinking about that. I'm sorry. I was just doing random ones.
Knives Out. He's in
Knives
Knives Out. He's in Knives Out. He's the son who's got like the cane in Knives Out.
He's really physically intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into some nostalgia and first impressions. Jesse, as the father of this collection of movies, you've birthed them all. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I worked real hard.
What's your nostalgia for this?
My nostalgia for this movie runs super deep. I think I mentioned before with like Trains, Planes, and Automobiles, that was a movie that I had watched when I was like pretty young. And that was a movie me and my family consistently watched. The other one was Groundhog Day. I watched this movie probably when I was like 6 or 7. Not all parts. Obviously, there are some parts, where he kills himself.
Mhm.
I'm sure that was blocked out for a few years. I think I still saw that at a slightly younger age. I'm not sure if it was bad for me. I don't think it was, but it did really impact me at the time. Yeah, this has been a movie that's been with me and my family for a very long time. I love this movie. I've always really liked it. I've always thought it was super funny. And then when it's not funny, I like to think about what it's presenting here. I think this movie has made me more of like an existential person to some degree. Like this movie first introduced me to the concept of what do you do if you just have all the time in the world? It's something I'd never really thought of before.
You just really try hard not to break your glasses.
Wait, what?
Because you said all
short story.
Yeah, all the time in the world. It's also Twilight Zone episode.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I didn't watch the Twilight Zone. I just watched this. I watched this. I think I also watched. I think it was a vampire movie, an old black and white one where somebody was immortal and he was kind of going crazy. And that was the only other movie that has introduced me to this sort of concept. Though. But anyway, when I was younger, I didn't even get the implications, except for the loneliness. The loneliness of this sort of lifestyle was like something that really struck me as a kid. Yeah, and I think it stayed with me in like weird ways throughout my life. I mean, it's hard to tell exactly what, but I've always been like fascinated with time travel and reliving the same thing over and over and wondering what you had to do if you have this much time on your hands. And I love the hopeful note of this movie that says maybe you become a better person because of it, or at least that you can become a better person. Yeah. Yeah, love this movie. And I've always loved this movie. I still love this movie. It's still probably a 5-star movie. I know it probably doesn't really deserve 5 stars, but I will just give it that.
Sure.
How about you, Dan?
Yeah, I was trying to remember the last time, or rather the first time I saw it. I don't remember. I know it was as an adult. I know I didn't watch this as a kid, but as an adult, I remember liking it the first time I watched it, and it just kind of stuck with me. I kept thinking about it, and then these other Groundhog Day type movies would come out, and it would always make me rethink about this one and how
Yeah.
like this one did it almost better than any of the others in a certain way. It's kind of the genesis of all of those other Groundhog Day type movies, and
Yeah.
in some ways, I think it's kind of amazing that this one does it so well. A lot of these Genesis type movies they'll get a good premise or a good gimmick, but then it takes other directors later down the road to really make it interesting or make it impactful or make it meaningful. And this one, I think, does all of those things really well.
Yeah.
And I agree with you about it being kind of that like introduction to, what would you call it, like existentialism, or that kind of feeling of living the same day and having all the time in the world. Like, what would you do as a person? I remember I had a similar experience when I read the book. It's called The Picture of Dorian Gray, where this guy has basically all of his actions are he's devoid of any evil consequence of any of his actions. He doesn't grow older. He doesn't get hurt. He doesn't become ugly by the ugly actions he does.
They just go to the painting, right?
Yeah, the painting or the portrait of him is what receives all of the negative effects of his life. And I remember reading that and thinking, wow, I guess I don't need to do all these evil things because somebody else already tried them all and they led to unhappiness. So and that was like teenage me. But I remember having a similar feeling with this. It was like, wow, if I had all the time in the world, I would probably go down a similar path and,
try everything, right?
Yeah, like no consequences, live it up. And so seeing somebody go through that and not being happy at the end of living it up is kind of a cool thing to see. And I think it's really what cinema is supposed to do for us, right? It's supposed to let us live vicariously through the characters and learn something from it. And I think this movie does that in spades.
Yeah, that's a very dad concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dad movie. I'm just going to say that right now. It's already a dad movie.
Spoilers, Jesse.
I'll repeat it later in the podcast.
All right.
Yeah. What about you, Mike? First impressions?
Yeah, I think I saw this when I was like 13 or something like that. It was a movie night that we had with the family friends that I grew up with. And it was incredible. I loved it. Still love it. It's hilarious. It's very funny, but it's also like very moving. And I felt the same as you guys did, like the loneliness that this guy felt going through day after day of living the same life and not being able to create memories with people, but creating them for himself. I kind of like dug it though. I've always kind of dug the Groundhog Day scenario. I've always been like, that would be kind of fun for a little while.
Yeah. I get like a solid month out of that.
Yeah, I get so much done.
Yeah.
I would be so productive.
I would just turn everything into like GTA. It would just be GTA.
Well, yeah, I mean, like there'd be like every few days it would just be GTA. But no, and there were parts of it that the screen was covered for, I remember, but not the suicides. That was really striking. I just remember like we're going through this funny movie and all of a sudden he kills himself like several times in horrific ways. It's like, what is this movie? What are we doing here?
Yeah. I think when I watched those scenes, my family and my parents specifically were laughing about that. So I was just like, oh, I guess him dropping the toaster in is supposed to be funny.
Yeah. This seems really... I feel like there was sort of a halfway attempt to cover up half of them, but by the time he drives over the ledge with...
You see, that's an issue. That's a murder-suicide.
Murder-suicide.
Like
Phil kills Phil.
The dad who I was watching it with was just like, he was laughing too much to get in front of the screen.
When the car just explodes.
He was like, I should stop. This is just too funny. Like, you guys have to see this. This is so funny.
He's probably okay. Probably not.
It's okay. As soon as it explodes and it's all over, it's just, I got you, babe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. What about you, Vito? What's your nostalgia?
I did not see this with my family. I saw this with my dad. He showed it to me. It was just a movie night with me and him. Independently of him, though, I had also watched The Truman Show.
Oh,
Pretty near
yeah.
to this. It's almost the exact same kind of movie. If you look at it, like it's a comedian that's been famous who is trying to do kind of a dramedy that's about big questions of life. It's a high concept sci-fi thing, but it's also very grounded and relatable and about human relationships. It was incredibly successful and has remained legendary and is called a classic. Like they're very, very similar.
Yeah.
Okay. And they
And
also
being
ask,
like trapped in a small town
exactly
for many years. Yeah.
And anything that you do, you get stopped, right? Like every time Truman tries to leave, there's always something that happens.
Yeah.
Same way, like him trying to leave his time loop.
Yeah, both movies feel really claustrophobic.
Yeah.
For even though both have like a very wide area they're working in. Yeah.
They're bottle
really
episodes.
They're bottle episodes, yeah.
Bottle episodes.
And but the difference though is that Groundhog Day is about someone that's fundamentally kind of unlikable, right? And the Truman Show is about how someone can just be so likable.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly likable.
And that's what was really funny because I saw them within about a week of each other for the first time. And I thought about them both a lot. They're both not far from my mind. I mean, you can see in my background, I have the Truman Show over there. I like the Truman Show a little bit more, but Groundhog Day really matters to me because Groundhog Day was the first time I'd seen in a comedy that you could be so kind of cynical about your life, right? Like you can there is a joke about many suicides and it's a really funny joke because he doesn't show you the toaster going in the bathtub. It shows him getting in the bathtub. He hits the down plunger and then it goes to downstairs and all the lights flicker out. So that was kind of like my nostalgia for this movie is seeing it in conjunction with the Truman Show, but also seeing it with my dad and us talking about it. I think he expected there to be a lot more conversation about the suicide scenes than there was. But this was also when he showed this to me. This also like Inception came pretty closely after this, which is a movie that's where suicide is a mechanic of the movie, or killing other people to eject out of the dream. And I remember there was a lot of like to do about, are these movies glorifying suicide in our kids? And I don't think so. I almost showed this to my daughter because it is a very friendly movie and it's really nice. And my wife was the one who stopped me and it's like, remember the suicide scenes? I was like, yeah, but I mean, she won't get that. I said, you don't see anything. She's like, well, what about the cursing? I said, oh, yeah, there's like a surprising amount of cursing. You're right about that. But it made me think about it. And so I had known we grew up in pop culture. I had known about the premise of Groundhog Day for a long time. So it wasn't revelatory for me to see it on screen. It's everyone talks about, it feels like a Groundhog Day and everyone knows what we mean by that. So I was just more primed to be okay with this movie than I think maybe someone who's older than me or someone who's younger than me would be, and it might seem more shocking. So really, when it came down to it, I was ready out the gate to show this to my daughter, but I think I'll probably wait, but I don't think too much later than like 11 or 12. Like this is a really friendly film to watch. And even more than that, it's a really fun, high concept film that can kind of get the gears going. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like I have deep nostalgia for this. I can't wait to show it to my kids. And I think early teens. What about you, Jesse?
I would go with like 8 personally.
Cool.
I guess that's in a couple years for my daughter. Yeah, you know what? Maybe she's not ready for this movie. No, she would not like this movie. I'm just going to go on a limb. It's going to be later for her. My son, yeah, I'm probably going to wait till he's 8. But like with the suicide stuff, that doesn't even concern me. I think if we're watching it together, she can gauge my reaction just like I did with my parents, figure out how I should feel right now. And I think there was some talk afterwards, or just a brief mention, like, yeah, don't commit suicide. What he's doing is very bad, but this is a movie.
It's like in Harry Potter, like they're doing magic. You can't do magic. It's like in Star Wars, they use the Force. You can't use the Force. It's Groundhog Day. He kills himself. You can't kill yourself.
Yeah. So it never even like crossed my mind this was like real at all. Except when the only scene that's exceptional for that is the scene where he falls off the building and then you see his dead body, like laying in the morgue afterwards. That's when I was older, I was like, ooh, he's actually dead. He's really dead. He's not just like waking up at 6 a.m. He's like, he's dissociated from his body. His body's still there. That hit me differently. So I probably covered that up. Like I was like, okay, maybe this is when I do what Mike's friend's dad did walk in front of the screen for a little bit, and then they continue watching.
Like you get up there and then you like fart, you know. be a clown for the kids a little bit.
It's an interlude.
Yeah.
Dad's butt. How about
It
you,
is a
Dan?
question. Yeah, it is a question of like, what are you going to do to skip scenes as a dad? I feel like, are you going to be the fast forwarder that sometimes misses, key dialogue?
It never works.
Yeah.
That's the lazy dad go-to.
Yeah.
But it's never worked for me.
I'll usually end up in the middle of the scene I'm skipping.
Yeah.
Yeah. My parents were legendary for that. My parents were just like, oh, they want to, skip boobs and penises. And what do they land on? Boobs and penises. And what is their instinct? To pause.
Yeah.
Oh no, pause. Wait.
And then you try and fast forward, but then it has to like
get
and
going.
It goes in slow motion. Like if you're watching on DVD, it's funny. Yeah.
This VHS, it was much harder because then you're physically trying to get to the next point in the tape.
Yeah.
And at least now we have like skip 10 seconds or, you can click further along.
The VHS is just like the 2 gray bars, but you can see everything beyond the gray bars. Yeah. Dan, what age do you think for your kids, or will you?
I definitely will show it to my kids. I think probably 13, 14, just because like the language. Yeah, I don't really want my younger kids like picking up on that, thinking it's funny to use this language. I think that's one that I have to keep reminding myself as a dad. Like my kids will repeat this in school the next day if this is in the movie, and it like as you become an adult, it becomes less of a deal. You're like, yeah, they say the F word or they whatever, but it really does matter for kids to hear that stuff. But I also agree that I want them to like see it early enough that they can have these profound ideas, coming into their minds. And so, yeah, I don't know, maybe 13 is too old, because even at 11 and 12, they're probably having some of these ideas, like they can grasp some of the ideas. So yeah, I'd say 13 or 14 for myself.
Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd probably 11, 12, 13, something like that.
Yeah. Because you'd probably do it with the 2 of your kids who are pretty close in age.
I mean, same sort of thing. Like the cussing, I don't want my kids running around dropping F-bombs.
Okay, sorry, wait. You guys have both brought it up, but maybe I glossed over it in my mind completely. Is there that much?
There's some shits and some dams, but I don't remember an F word.
You're right. I don't remember an F word.
But I mean, there's like a liberal. This is a 1993 PG movie,
yeah.
Right? So that means like as we talked about with Trains, Planes, and Automobiles, right? Like that's an R-rated movie because of like 15 F words in 1 minute, right?
Right.
But apart from that, it's PG. But like a PG then just meant this could be E.T. or this is Raiders of the Lost Ark, or like this is any other thing.
Yeah.
It's a grab bag.
Yeah.
There just won't be nudity. That's all we know.
Yeah. Whereas a PG movie in the 70s will definitely have nudity, which is something that we discovered.
There just won't be like decapitations.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Airplane is PG, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. There's this movie about like a sniper or an assassin or something that my mom remembered. Like,
3 Days of the Condor?
Maybe? I can't remember what it's called. My mom was like, "Oh, this is a great movie I remember from when we were kids," and like there's
Parallax
just full frontal nudity in it.
The MPAA, you're gonna say.
She's like, "Oh, I didn't think that was gonna be here."
Well, if you think about it, PG means parental guidance, right? So anything that is not really hardcore is just under parental guidance.
Yeah, exactly.
Guide your kids, parents.
Exactly.
Like I feel like Alien was an X rating, but you can see why Alien would be X.
Yeah.
Alien was an X rating
for the chest bursting.
Yeah.
I've seen much harder, gorier violence in R-rated movies at this point.
That's 1979.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure people puked in the theater when they first saw that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So is The Godfather, right? With the multiple killings that happened in that movie. Like we talked about The Godfather as well. That's a fairly solid R, but back then that was that's almost how taboo and reprehensible that sort of violence would seem.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he wakes up with a horse head in the bed, you know.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I know.
It's so cool.
That's why it was X, Mike.
Awesome.
Wait. The Godfather was X as well?
Yeah.
What?
I had no idea.
So much death in that movie. Remember Sonny gets gunned down in broad daylight and like bleeds out in the street, and Vito gets shot in the street.
Yeah,
Maybe
but
I never
like,
mentioned it in the episode, but that was the one moment where I was just like, oh, that's a little corny. It's just the way he's like jolting. It's just like
It's also
I mean,
like
it's been like mocked so many times at this point that I can't
Yeah.
help but think of all the mockeries instead of.
also when Pacino comes out and like cold-bloodedly murders the corrupt policeman and the other mob boss, like even just context-wise, like that's a pretty taboo thing to show.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's pretty shocking.
Yeah, it comes out and just like blammo right in the head.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I don't
Fun
want to derail.
times.
Why don't we have more movies rated X nowadays, guys?
Uh,
These are legends.
Right. That was why. All right, so okay, so
yeah,
we're
so
on
so
the
as they
contexts.
enter their teenage years, I'll show them this movie where they can question the shape and state of their own reality. I think that's a great way to grow up. Yeah.
Yeah,
What is the real world anyway?
you want to introduce a little bit of solipsism in there.
Oh yeah, definitely want to make them existential.
Great. Well, let's get into some of our favorite scenes here. Now that we've all kind of discussed this and kind of come to an agreement, as well as talked about the MPAA for a little bit. We should talk about that more because that's shocking. Dan, what is your favorite scene?
I think I think my favorite scene, and it's not for any really deep reason or anything. I just really love the scene when Phil comes out of the car and he's dressed up like a cowboy and he's like putting on this act with like the girl and he walks up to the to the theater or whatever. It's such like a kind of a random scene and there's no real build up to it. Like you see that he's kind of like living up his life before that. He's like getting drunk and whatever, but then it's just him living like a fantasy. And I kind of love how it's totally kind of random in the moment, and it kind of, I don't know, there was, it's kind of like relatable to me. Like if I had tons of time on my hands, everybody has their like fantasies they'd want to live out, and that's just so like almost endearing that he would have this fantasy to be a cowboy and live it out like that. So
The man with no name specifically, right? He's got the poncho, he's got the little
Yeah.
cigarillo.
yeah.
It's weird that he has
I
her
told
dressed as
ya.
a maid though.
Call me
weird.
Bronco.
Yeah, call me Bronco.
Okay, I do have a question. Sidebar. Who is that girl? Is that a prostitute?
I kind of think it's a call girl.
I kind of think it is too. Because I don't really, maybe I was wrong and she was in another scene like in the background or something, but I always thought like that would be like, here we are just going to live out this ultimate thing. Like you'd have to pay someone to do that, right?
Yeah,
Well,
so this
no,
is
she comes out of the car and says, "I thought this was a costume party."
Okay. Well, they could still be a call girl, I suppose.
It could. Well, I don't know. It
It
doesn't
could go
even.
either way, I
Yeah.
think. Like either someone that he's like used his charm and everything to convince to come with him as a girlfriend, but I think it probably makes a lot more sense to be a call girl.
It would just be easier to
Yeah.
get like the thing done, right? Like I want to go dressed up as this, and I want you to call me Bronco. Like,
I told you, call me Bronco.
weird parallel to Power of the Dog, by the way.
Yeah, weird parallel. Yeah. That's another reason why I'm like I want to delay a little bit. Or
Well, I
like,
never
think
thought of it
about
until I
how to
saw it this time.
Yeah, I know. I didn't think about it either, but like that's definitely like his sexual deviant phase of
Yeah.
eternity. You know,
He did a lot more.
he kicks it off by like manipulating the chick in the
Nancy.
Nancy, that's right, who went to school with
Which took
Mrs.
Mrs.
Wilson or
Walsh.
whatever.
Just-
yeah,
an insane amount of time to do. Just how many days?
yeah.
Yeah. I like that movie, every time the movie could get bogged down in something, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it
yeah,
just moves
right.
on.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a
Yeah.
part of the thing, and you move on, because of course it would happen, because it would make sense. The movie's trying to be logical.
Yeah.
And in another way that other movies such as Palm Springs can get bogged down in that for a little bit and mine it for comedic gold. Here we just do a couple jokes and move on to the next thing. Like next is the suicide phase. Next is like the helping people phase. Next is like the learning piano phase. Yeah, Dan, that's actually a really good scene though. And it really ties into kind of what I would do if I was in isolation. Like eventually it would come down to real life cosplay and not caring what other people thought. I feel
like that would happen a lot quicker than any of us would want to admit.
It would probably happen day 3.
Yeah,
like the first day would be like shock. Second day would be like minor speeding. And then third day would be like, maybe I am a cowboy.
Yeah.
Did you say minor speeding? You're just like going 10 miles over the speed limit? Like maybe 15 to live dangerously?
Minor speeding for me is probably felony speeding for most people. But
I'd probably like try donuts.
Oh.
Like I've never done donuts in my car.
Yeah, I might knock over some mailboxes, like with my car door as I go past them. Your neighborhood's really good for that. You got all sorts of mailboxes out there.
All sorts of mailboxes.
Yeah,
it's true.
Fling out my Ford door, knock them down.
Yeah.
Jesse, what about you? What's your favorite scene?
All right, so growing up, Ned Ryerson, all the Ned Ryerson interactions individually constituted the entirety of Groundhog Day to me. I always loved just Ned. Ned, Needle-Nose Ned, Ned the Head.
Come on, buddy. Case Western High. Ned Ryerson. I did the whistling belly button trick at the high school talent show. Bing! Ned Ryerson. Got the shingles real bad senior year. Almost didn't graduate. Bing again. Ned Ryerson. I dated your sister Mary Pat a couple times until you told me not to anymore. Well?
Ned Ryerson.
Bing!
And then growing up, I loved the scene where he punched him. That was such a
yes.
That was always the thing where it's just like, people are annoying and you can never just punch them because you have to face so many consequences. But here is this guy, he could just punch anybody who's annoying to him. And that was maybe a little wish fulfillment thing. Like, what if I could just do that for a day? That'd be great. I don't know. The whole movie kind of blurs together for me as like one great scene. But like, I think one of my favorite, funniest, and just kind of depressing scene where he's sitting at the restaurant. He has all that food stacked in front of him. Starts going off about how he's a god. He's not the god. Well, he doesn't know.
I don't think.
I don't think.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't even need to floss. Trying a piece of cake and lighting a cigarette.
He shoves that piece of angel food cake all the way in.
So did anyone else, throw back to another episode, did anyone else get real Cool Hand Luke vibes from this a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
when he's getting the eggs in there. I remember you saying, someone was saying on that episode, they kind of gagged a little bit when that scene came up.
I think we all gagged a little bit when that scene came up.
I gagged a little bit watching him navigate the corridors of the sides of his cheeks to get that whole thing in there.
He did that in front of a person, a lady.
Without breaking eye contact.
He doesn't just do that. He has a whole pitcher of coffee that he's pouring down his throat.
Apparently, he was offered a spittoon or whatever they use, a spit bucket, after that scene, and he refused it. And they said he got really sick after that scene because after all that food he stuffed in his face, he didn't do what he should have done, which is just spit it up.
Yeah, well, how many takes?
Yeah.
So I guess during the making of this, he was going through a pretty rough time in his life. I think there was a divorce that was happening in Bill Murray's life. And of course, this famously ended the relationship between him and Harold Ramis until Harold Ramis's deathbed in 2014. They were best friends. I mean, look at their credits together, And what's really sad is with that knowledge for the first time watching this movie again, there are numerous moments where I don't think they had enough makeup to help Bill Murray out. Because there's times where he is rough looking, where he looks haggard kind of beyond the scope of the movie. Like he looks like really pale and it looks like they're trying to help him with makeup, but it's not really working. And there's multiple moments where I wonder, like, is this acting or are you just being depressed on screen?
It feels really genuine. Like when he's talking about being God and maybe, that comes across as like, I don't know, maybe a celebrity having a crisis. Maybe thinking he is kind of God here for a second. And you describing that story of the spittoon, like, that's a Phil Connors play right there. I think that kind of lends to the genuineness of this movie because it feels surprisingly genuine. It feels like he's actually going through most of this stuff. And the kind of haggardness that he goes through throughout the movie, I think it actually lends to it. Like when he's depressed and suicidal, he looks far worse.
I was looking back over his filmography kind of last night, just out of curiosity, and I realized that this is probably the beginning of Real Sad Murray, right?
Yeah.
But Real Sad Murray does not ever now go away until just a couple years ago, where we've gone into doesn't give a old man Murray. But there was a solid 15-year stretch of just sad Murray. Like, remember him in Rushmore, right, where he's like smoking a cigarette in the elevator, and Max is like, "You doing okay?" And he lights another cigarette and puts it in, and then pours a bottle of gin into a Coke can in his chest pocket and says, "I've been better." Yeah, it's sad Murray. And that's a great scene, though, Jesse. I like that one a lot. How about you, Mike? I like all these scenes.
Picking a favorite scene out of Groundhog Day is like picking gold out of gold. I was really... the thing that made me laugh the most this time around was when they first get stuck and they're trying to leave Punxsutawney and they get turned back. He's out in the cold, like he's shivering and stuff, but then he's talking to the cops, but then they come back and like he's been turned around. He decides not to go try to walk to Philadelphia and freeze to death. They go back and he's on the phone and he's like trying to call someone, anybody. And he's like, "Don't you have like a line for people in need and celebrities?" And like, I'm both. And then suddenly some guy like with a shovel comes out of nowhere and just whacks him on the head. He's like, "Oh, son of a bitch." It's great. I just love that.
I like when he's out there shivering to the cops. He's like, "No, it's going to come up from the south and push off to the east."
He just love that. What about you, Vito?
I think my favorite one is after he has the magical date with Rita, where everything goes really well. And he has like the impromptu snowball fight, and he falls down next to her, and like the stars are aligning. And then every attempt after that does not work because it just happened to be like, of course he did a bunch of planning and he plotted the answers out and he knew what to say, but there was genuine chemistry between them. This scene kind of shows that they're making this the snowman, and then the kids jump out at them, and you can't plan that thing. And when he does try and plan it, it's just so painful.
It's that thing gave me like anxiety for my entire life.
Yeah.
He's like, "Ha ha ha, look at you, Rugrats. Ha ha, I'd like to have kids someday. Kids just like you kids. Ha ha ha.
I want to adopt kids. Can I adopt you? Are you up for adoption?"
and then she's looking at him with this increasing alarm, and then he like flops down next to her and scooches in real close.
Like, what are you doing?
I love that scene because it actually made a big impact on me, in that it told me that you can't script moments of real chemistry between you and other people. And that the harder you try and do that, the more artificial that'll seem. Which is a big deal for me because I still struggle with anxiety like greatly. But when I was a teenager, I didn't realize how big of a problem I had with it. And I would try and minimize that anxiety by trying to plan my social interactions a little bit better, try and minimize impromptu interactions because those would always stress me out. And I realized looking back how awkward that made some moments feel with people that are close to me because they knew that it was kind of set up. But I was okay because then I felt comfortable with that. The longer that time goes on, the more I realize that sometimes the best moments you have with your friends are moments you really couldn't plan for and are just about how you two people interact naturally with each other. And that was the first time a movie had shown that to me so clearly, you know?
Yeah. Would you say it was seminal for you?
Ding, bing,
bing,
bing. Seminal.
I'm not gonna lie, I think that seems pretty seminal for me too. Like, I think I also just realized that, like, I guess I've always known, or maybe it's since this movie that I've known that you just can't fake like some genuine interactions with people. And if you try to fake it, if you try to plan it that much, to the degree where you're angling your body down right next to them, it will be not a real connection, not a real friendship. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many people I wanted to be friends with where I tried to do something that didn't seem natural to get closer to them because I knew that we would be friends, but it never worked because of how weird it was that I was trying so hard.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, it'll work. You just got to give me a chance. Like I made up this whole scenario where this will work. why can't you just be on board? And they're like, you are weird. Your energy is very strange right now.
And I like that this movie, it clearly shows Andy McDowell's reaction as very, like you were saying, very alarmed and increasingly more so. And I like that there's this very clear moment where it's like, yeah, this is bad. What he's doing is not good and it won't work. As a kid, that was very instrumental because you always need the strong reactions to things. And it was a reaction so obvious, but subtle enough for me to think about throughout the years.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I love that series of slaps too. It's so great. Like the night keeps getting repeated, and he keeps being unable to finally, I don't know, close the deal, seal the deal. And it ends in different points in the same exact scenario that you keep setting up, but each time.
Yeah. Or different locations, even in front of her place.
Yeah. That's what I love too.
Yeah. He's trying
sometimes
different
he gets
approaches.
so close.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's in the room and it doesn't work. And sometimes it's they're just standing out by the cameras.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a great character. I feel like in some ways she's supposed to be the audience. She sees Phil for what he really is, and at any moment that she sees his true intentions or that he's putting on a show or whatever, she's kind of she's taken out of it, and she slaps him every time, and it makes you like her a lot more. And by making you like her more, you want Phil to be kind of raised up to her level. You do want to see them together at the end of the movie, but it's in a very you want it to be real. You want it to be genuine, which is, I think, it says a lot about her character that they didn't just make her, she kind of doesn't have flaws to a certain extent. She's kind of just this perfect woman that, every man should be drawn to. And
with the exception of her drink order.
That's
I don't know what that was.
Sweet vermouth on the rocks with a twist. Sweet vermouth is so bad. Bill Murray cringing when he finally sips it and makes that face yes, that is the appropriate face for that drink.
I like his drink order though too because it's also bad. He's like Jim Beam, ice, water. What? I didn't know you needed water with your ice with your Jim Beam, sir.
That's something I didn't notice until this last time I watched it, because I think every other time I was too young to know what drinks were and know what combinations were. And it's something that, as a kid, you're a drink is a drink. It must be fancy and it must taste good. But
yeah. Sweet vermouth on the rocks with the twist. I always thought that would be a delicious, ooh, only the cool people know about this sort of drink. No, it's very plain.
Yeah.
And it does not taste good. It's way too sweet. And
it's fairly yicky.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've covered some of our favorite scenes, maybe we can talk about some questions about this movie that we have. Jesse, you had an interesting question that I think could springboard us into a number of topics.
Yeah. I've seen this movie throughout the years. I've thought about a lot of things in this movie, but one thing that for whatever reason I never thought about, and it struck me watching it this time, is the correlation between Phil the character and Phil the Groundhog. Clearly they're both named the same thing. And at one point in the movie, Phil Connors even kind of relates himself to the groundhog, which is why he jumps off the cliff with him, right? He thinks
don't drive angry.
Yeah, he thinks the groundhog is in some way causing this winter for him, and the groundhog must be stopped. Must be stopped. And so, I was wondering, and the key thing with the groundhog is that the groundhog sees his shadow, and it makes this winter drag on and on for 6 more weeks. And I think that's an implication that Phil has a shadow too, and he has something in his life that is keeping and perpetuating this cycle. So what is Phil's shadow?
This is an interesting question because it could be something so general as just his misanthropy, his smugness, his condescension, or narcissism. This is related to something I was thinking about, what is it inside of Phil that changes? This is almost a shadow to your shadow question, right? Is, if you're talking about what is it he's leaving behind, I want to ask what it is that he gains. So my dad, when we watched this movie together, he said that Phil needs to learn how to be a good person so that he can be out of the time loop, which I suppose is what happens. But he does learn to be a good person, so much so that he can be all around town at any moment to rescue anyone that can be rescued, and forgets about those that can't be rescued, like the old man, right? So the old man, he can't save him. No
Mhm.
matter what he does, that old man is dying today because, as the nurse says, it's just his time. So in the end, it's not that he learns to be a good person so much as, I guess, it's that he learned to be a good person to his producer, or that he fell in love. So that would mean the shadow would be that he had been rude to his mate, I guess, if they're like chosen for each other in some sort of fated cosmic sense. Because that's how he
Well-
gets out of the time loop, is that he's genuine and sweet with Rita, right?
Well,
This is some
I-
dark
I-
shit here, man.
I thought it was a little bit more than that. I thought the
Sure,
reason
tell me.
for getting with Rita is because Rita is looking for the perfect man. So in order to get with her, he needs to be his perfect self. In fact, maybe a shadow is. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's the narcissism and all that. But maybe the shadow is. Maybe he's not being his real self. You know, when he's saying like me, also me, when she's like listing all the qualities she's looking for in a man, plays an instrument, isn't afraid to cry. We are talking about a man, right?
I'm really close.
I'm really
Close
close
to
on
this
this one. And he's being facetious, but what if he actually is? What if he does become that, right? He's right. That is him. That is really him. If he chooses.
So is she controlling, is for somehow, does she have the power of the time loop that she is unaware of? Like she bestows, like she has to recognize the qualities in him for him to get out?
Sort of. Well, so I know when this was written as like a purgatory story.
Yes.
Right? Punxsutawney, purgatory, and then I can't help but think of Andy McDowell as a sort of like, Dante's like
Beatrice.
Beatrice. I was about to say
Yeah.
Dulcinea.
Close.
Don Quixote. It's close.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Either way, it actually
Basically
works.
the same thing, right?
But in this case, Beatrice, like pointing him towards something greater, something higher, making him more who he should be. So I guess that's functionally in the story. I think that's how she acts. I'm not like I don't think she's actually that. I don't think she's actually an angel, but they actually make her kind of angelic. I think the recognition of her like angelic perfect nature with the sculpture at the end is also a nod to that.
The hair is almost a halo.
Yeah.
And there's a, like with her love of poetry as well, there's kind of like an elevated sense that she loves the higher things. And I think in one of the poems, she recites a poem to him at one point. I forget the exact poem, but it talks about like a second death, that like a man that's essentially, it says something like a man who is focused on himself dies twice.
Yeah.
And the way I understood that was like, you could almost see Phil's shadow as him like living a dead life, and that in order to get out of the time loop, he has to truly live. And truly living means to be outside of yourself, to care about others, to be the man that Rito is looking for, but also that we should all, strive to be. And I know that's very general, but I think there's definitely that like death and life are so closely tied in the movie. And I always saw that poem could be kind of hinting at that like in order to live again, he has to, live for the first time in his life, kind of.
I like that. I actually feel a sense of closure given this discussion that I haven't actually felt about this movie before. Because it's always been kind of he was good, and then the movie's over, and then you're supposed to be okay with that because that's kind of all that is on the surface for the movie to give you. But I actually feel a deeper understanding now that we're even just broaching this seriously. Because this, I think, has come up multiple times, like in college, you're out drinking late at night, and you're like, what even happened in Groundhog Day?
Yeah. Well,
what are the logistics of it?
Yeah, but I think that's part of what makes this movie legendary. It's like the Joker, right? They never explain it. They never even attempt to explain it.
Yeah.
It just happens. And then you're left with all the consequences afterwards. And that leaves conversations like this open. If they had bothered to explain any of that, I don't think this would be nearly as interesting.
No. And I think it's, as we go forward and talk about the other 3 movies in our time loop romance series, we'll find that this is the only one that doesn't attempt an explanation for the time loop. All the other ones either have a reason or just simply say it's this way because of this thing, and we're not going to really push it any further than that. Okay. But all the other ones, like, it's either about getting out of the time loop, trying to figure out how to control the time loop, or trying to figure out how to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else ever. And this one is like, it happened to him. It took a really long time.
And there's no explanation.
Yep. He was good. Bing.
So I was looking up alternate endings or like alternate scripts of this movie, and one ending they had at one point, this was, I think, one of the first renditions, is he finally gets to Rita. They're walking down, they're holding hands or whatever, and he says he loves her. And she says, I don't really think I care about you. And then it's implied that she starts a time loop.
Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
that would be a nice little metaphor of like trying to get the girl you like to like you over and over and over.
That's
and
how they
over
make
again.
that movie now.
Yeah.
that
It'd be
I
a
was like,
sequel.
yeah, I was like, wow, that's an indie movie that I'm pretty sure I've seen before. I can't picture what that movie is, but I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
I guess that's kind of what this is, but it's more than that. Like you're saying, because it's like, well, yeah, he wants to get this girl to like her, but it's not even really clear why he likes her to begin with. It's mostly just like he wants to sleep with her.
Yep.
But
initially, yeah.
Yeah. But it's more. It just sort of happens.
Like love.
Just like love.
Oh, also, weirdly, I always thought at the end he slept with her. But this time around...
No.
Yeah, this time around, I noticed he starts, like, kissing her, and she's like, why weren't you like that last night? It's like, what? Well, that never happened?
I did read that was a big discussion. Like, they filmed it both ways, that they'd wake up with or without their clothes on, basically. And that it was like a last-minute decision. They were like, no, they're going to wake up with their clothes on, and nothing happened. And reading that, I was kind of surprised. I was like, I feel like I would not like this movie nearly as much if it, if it was that got him out of the time loop,
Well, because she rejects him.
Disingenuous. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because she rejects him because he wants to have sex with her. So it would defeat the entire premise of the movie almost.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he would be a creep,
Right.
He would remain the creep that he started as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The movie would end with a grand victory that he is out of the time loop and is a confirmed creep. Okay, maybe last question. Dan, what was your question? Would you like to pose it?
I had a question. This is like, it's a little more existential, but whether the ending that Phil reaches, obviously this is a comedy and, we want a happy ending. And for sure the movie is better off with a happy ending. And yet I was still left with the thought at the end of it, like, is this ending for Phil inevitable? Is the redemption arc that we see, is it inevitable that, like, any person you stuck in a time loop like this, would they always end up changed? A changed person? Would they end up for the good? Would they end up, kind or is, a time loop not a perfect solution to people's problems? Like, given enough time, would we all become a better person, or is that not a guarantee?
I have a fast answer to this question, right? Is that everything that rises must converge, right? So eventually, if everything is going upwards, it must join up to something, is the literal reading of that. It's not actually the idea behind it. But I feel like wherever you would stop someone would dictate where they would be at. I don't know if inevitably you would lead yourself to a life of kindness, but I think at some point you would. At some point you'd try it just for something different, right?
You get bored. You get bored of
debauchery,
yeah.
And then you might get bored of asceticism, right? You might get bored of virtue.
Yeah.
Or you might not. It really depends on what I guess we would argue is the natural inclination for a human being.
Well, what's weird about this movie is when he becomes the good person, he's saving everybody. He's doing everything about the town. It's like genuinely selfless because most of the time, right, you can find some sort of selfish motivation in somebody. Normally it's a feeling associated with it, and people get feelings associated with things because, you know, from now on that person's going to think of them in like a heroic sort of way. But like, because he's stuck in a time loop, nobody will ever remember anything that he's ever done.
He has to make this goodwill happen anew every day.
Every single day. Like, and in order to do that, you have to not just go on like a brief stint. It has to be like ingrained in you as a person to make this sort of day happen. So I think I'll go even further and say, like, I think what you were describing, Vito, I think you're right. I think somebody will inevitably try to be like a good person for like a little while.
Yeah.
But I don't think they will do this. I think this is a very conscious choice. And I don't think human beings are inevitably try literally everything in their scope if they are trapped in a loop. I think they will tend towards some things. They get stuck in ruts. And that's even alluded to at one point in this movie, when he's just like, well, what would you do if your consequences didn't matter and you woke up in the same place every day? And then the guy sitting next to him was like, sums it up for me.
After he like takes a shot and burps.
Yeah. And some people like, in a way, I was realizing that in some ways my life is kind of like this. I do the same thing every day. Every Thursday night, here I am at the podcast, and then every day I'm waking up and doing work. I'm feeding the baby, and I got kids. Like I have a routine. I've got like I don't even travel much. Like I feel a little bit stuck sometimes, but I think everybody does to some degree. I honestly think the time loop idea isn't even that science fiction. I think we're all kind of stuck in this. Like I think this is mostly how life works.
Yeah.
And people aren't always good.
That's why it's appealing, right? That's why these sorts of stories is because when you get stuck in the grind of middle age and family where you can't avoid your responsibilities anymore, and the best thing you can do is seek to improve your station more, which means you need to grind more. It just feels like I'm stuck in a really terrible level of an RPG that I did not want to start playing.
Yeah. But
I think to conclude that thought or something, or to continue that thought, maybe it does seem though, like, man, I feel like I've gotten stuck in loops with my life, my real world life. Like I have a real life. And sometimes you sort of forget that because you just keep doing this loop. You're like, oh, I'm just doing the same thing every day. In these last 2 years, especially, right? I wake up, I go to my office and in my house, I go in there for 8 hours or so, and then I come back out and I stay here. This is where I do my life. But the way to break out of that is by recognizing the humanity of the people around you, and by choosing, like, he's having fun at the end. It's not like this is a chore to him.
He's playing piano. Got
like he's playing, but it's not just that. Not just like, oh, I'm having fun playing piano. He's having fun every day, becoming like the guy that the town loves. Like he's becoming the guy of the town. Like that's fun. Yeah. Because he goes and like he saves this kid who's flying out of the tree and like doing all
this is
errands. This is errands. He's having fun doing it. And it's that like consistent sort of thing that brings you out, like choosing to realize the life of the other people around you, that it's not just you. I think that's a big big truth in life, and that this movie, the time loop sort of idea, lends itself to.
Yeah, and even when he's having fun in that scene in the ballroom or whatever where everyone's dancing, he's still like wearing glasses and he's just having fun, like making everyone else have a good time, right? He's not out there breakdancing or something. He's just having fun, like putting the music on, and there's still something selfless about what he's doing. No, it's a thought that I've had too about, you hear all these stories of men in their, having a midlife crisis. Mm-hmm. It's gotta be because they have that daily grind that just becomes too much for them, and they have to mix it up, and they have to return to their childhood and experience something new again. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of neat to see a movie like this where somebody goes through all of those stages and like experiences all of it. And this is what they come to, is the selflessness is what really brings happiness. And yeah, I feel like in some ways that's like the people that are older in my life that I admire the most are the ones that seem to have learned that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Like they've become a selfless human being. They're interested in me and my life. They're interested in my family. They're interested in other people around them. And those tend to be the older people in my life that I respect more and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, enjoy being around.
This podcast is my midlife crisis. That's what we're doing every week.
I love the idea of inevitability in this movie. I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but just like it's something that it awoke that thought in me. Those ideas, like gravity's rainbow. You know,
Oh yeah,
the truth coming inevitably to light in
Lob rocks.
Knives Out, right, or whatever it is. The question about like, does something have to occur the way that what's her name slaps Bill Murray every night. It's just, this is an inevitable outcome. That's what it seems like as you're going through it. That like, no matter what he does, it's just going to end up with him getting slapped by this girl. But in fact, there's this possibility of breaking out of that loop.
There was just a skill tree he hadn't unlocked yet.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, so much of this made me think of like, this is just like playing Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah, so I guess to completely answer the question, it does seem inevitable that goodness will be sought after, if only out of a sense of boredom initially, and then afterwards, maybe out of a sense of satisfaction or fulfillment that you'd previously not expected to be there. That's what I think we've kind of settled on. No?
That's what I'm shooting for in my life: getting bored of all the bad things and eventually deciding to try to be good.
I think it's inevitable in this movie. I don't think it's inevitable as a whole. I don't think it's inevitable for everybody.
You see, if we started doing that, we would have to cut this recording and then start a whole new one, and it'd be about that whole topic, because that's a big one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
If you get enough monkeys in a room, do you get an inevitable?
That is
some billion
you know what?
years.
I've been thinking about the monkey scenario like all day, ever since like Dan pitched this question to us. It's just like, do you actually get Shakespeare? Would you, or would they just keep on typing AW? Or
I mean, statistically speaking, yes, you do.
Inevitably, yes, yeah.
Statistically speaking,
Inevitably, they would write your life story.
statistically speaking,
if they actually use every keyboard. But what if they just choose to use 3?
If you lock them in there long enough,
I mean,
they will.
The question always begins on an infinite timescale.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, but like even on an infinite timescale, like I just don't think. Like me personally, I have like a few things that I gravitate towards and that I would probably get stuck in a rut doing over and over and over again. I don't like, I know I can branch out. It's possible. I know that's possible.
You're doing this podcast.
Well, yes.
That's a branch out. You hadn't been doing podcasts before.
but it's not
That's
really
right.
a branch out anymore. This is just part of the inevitable.
But will
But
I
I'm saying
lives.
will I do
This-
every podcast?
Inevitably, there is a universe where it comes to Slash Filmcast. It's Dave Chen, it's Devendra Hardawar, it's Jeff Kanata, and Jesse.
No, I'm talking like, I don't know, any podcast out there. Like, would I have the same name as Joe Rogan, right? The Jesse Moore Experience.
Coming at you live from my spare bedroom. Well, I think we're gonna have to leave that as it sits.
We will.
But like, what if the monkeys
No.
like? Do they reproduce in there?
like
This is where I always go. Like, and so like, is the presence, the ever-present like reality of the typewriters? Does that cause them to evolve and develop like human intelligence?
I feel like Jesse
Because
has
if
to
that's
go
the
home,
case,
right?
then definitely they're going to write Shakespeare, because it's going to be like a bottle episode.
Jesse
of
has to be home by
humanity.
midnight. It's 11:35
I
there.
love bottle episodes. Bottle episodes are great. Big fan.
All right. The monkeys are interesting. We'll talk about it more at another time.
I think they're reproducing in there. So, hey, Dan, is this a dad movie?
Absolutely. I don't know if there's anything more dad than this. It's it's got everything. It's hilarious. It's got Bill Murray, and I'll definitely show it to my kids, and I hope they watch it and think of me.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Jesse?
Yeah,
Is it a
basically,
dad movie?
absolutely the same thing. It's definitely a dad movie. It's great to see with kids. It's great to remind myself what it means to be, a human choosing to be good. And I'm going to pass it on to my kids. I want my kids to think about this movie. And it's just so funny. It's just such a great comedy. Yeah, love everything about it. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, this is absolutely a dad movie. Yeah, like you guys said.
Reproducing monkeys or no?
Well, that's in the subtext. No, man, I love that it's such a lighthearted and deep movie at the same time. It's a rom-com with some serious like existential questions.
It's a time loop romance.
It's a time loop romance.
It's the foundational time loop romance.
It is. I love time loops. I love. Okay, I'm gonna throw this in here. I love time loops because they are like that sort of bottle reality that they put you in.
You love bottle episodes, as you said.
And I love because what they do, like with a standard story, what you do is you end up like the things that happen sort of cause the change in the characters. Here, it has to be like the self-reflection that the person goes through. It forces the person over a long, long period of time to have that self-reflection and change.
And what this movie has that's really great is it does it in like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But then what other movies that I think I have not been as big a fan of, but you really love, is that it does it to you in like real time.
Yeah.
So Mike's like, have you seen this 4-hour movie about self-reflection? He learned something. I'm like, no, I haven't. That sounds so painful.
This is my favorite thing. I love it. It's great. Vito, is it a dad movie?
I think Bill Murray's implied dad movie.
Yeah.
And this is one of the Bill Murray. This like Stripes is fun, but it's not very good. Like Ghostbusters is fun. I'm gonna say it's probably not very good, but it's pretty fun. This is fun and good.
Yeah,
it's a classic for the ages, and yeah, I'm so happy that we get to start off a fresh new little series with just an all-time classic movie that I think maybe people have kind of forgotten about due to like the influx of time loop movies that we've gotten. I mean, I think we got like 3 in the past 2 years. They just keep coming out. And something I'd like to do going forward is to tease for the next episode. I'm going to name 2 movies that it won't be. Okay?
What won't it be, Vito?
It will not be a map of tiny perfect things, and it will also not be Happy Death Day. So enjoy that, listeners. But for all of us at Not Your Father's Movies, I'm Vito.
I'm Mike.
I'm Dan.
I'm Jesse.
Good night.